The chipped mug warmed my hands as I stared out at the Seattle rain. It was a Tuesday, late October, and the city was draped in its usual melancholic gray. Cormac, a software engineer, was 46, and increasingly life felt like one long debugging session. My wife, Willow, had been distant for months, a subtle but persistent chill that had seeped into our once cozy home. I tried to ignore it, attributing it to work stress. She was a lawyer, after all, and the pressure was immense. But the feeling lingered, a gnawing unease that wouldn't let me sleep. We'd been married for 18 years, a lifetime, or so it felt. We met in college, two awkward souls drawn together by a shared love of old movies and bad puns. We built a life together, a comfortable existence in a city we loved. We weren't perfect, of course, but we were us, a solid, reliable unit. Or so I thought. The first sign, the one I dismissed as paranoia, was the phone calls. Late-night whispers, hushed tones in the hallway, always ending abruptly when I approached. Then came the unexplained late nights at the office, the urgent client meetings that stretched on for hours. I started noticing a change in her appearance too. New clothes, a different perfume, a subtle but undeniable glow. It was like she was shedding her old skin and becoming someone else, someone I didn't recognize. One evening, I decided to surprise her at work. I picked up her favorite Thai food and drove downtown, picturing her tired but happy face when I arrived. Her office was in a gleaming skyscraper, a monument to corporate success. I rode the elevator to her floor, my heart pounding with anticipation. The receptionist greeted me with a polite but confused smile. "Willow isn't here," she said. "She left hours ago." My stomach dropped. "But she said she had a late meeting," I stammered. The receptionist shrugged. Maybe it was off-site. I thanked her and left, the Thai food suddenly heavy in my hands. I drove home in a daze, replaying the conversation in my head. Where was she? Who was she with? The questions swirled in my mind, each one more painful than the last. I tried calling her, but her phone went straight to voicemail. I left a message, trying to sound casual, but my voice trembled. "Hey, just wondering where you are. I brought you dinner. Call me when you get a chance." Hours passed and still no word. I paced the living room, my anxiety growing with each tick of the clock. Finally, around midnight, she walked in, her face flushed, her hair slightly disheveled. "Where were you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I had a meeting," she said, avoiding my gaze. "The receptionist said you left hours ago," she sighed. "It was a client dinner. It ran late." "Client dinner? Without telling me? Without answering your phone?" Her eyes flashed with anger. "Are you interrogating me, Cormac? I'm a grown woman. I don't need to report my every move to you." Defensiveness stung. It was a wall, a barrier she had erected between us. I knew then, deep down, that something was terribly wrong. The next few weeks were a blur of suspicion and denial. I became obsessed with her phone, her emails, her whereabouts. I felt like a detective in a bad movie, constantly searching for clues, for proof of my worst fears. I knew it was unhealthy, but I couldn't stop myself. The uncertainty was eating me alive. One afternoon, while Willow was at work, I decided to do something I never thought I was capable of. I went through her phone. I know it was a violation of her privacy, a betrayal of our trust, but I was desperate. I needed to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Her phone was locked, of course, but I knew her password. It was our anniversary date, a detail she had always cherished. I typed it in, my hands shaking. The screen unlocked, revealing a world of secrets. I scrolled through her messages, my heart pounding in my chest. There were texts from a number I didn't recognize, filled with flirtatious banter and veiled promises. "Can't wait to see you tonight," one message read. "Thinking about you all day," said another. I clicked on the contact. The name was Finn. My blood ran cold. I didn't know any Finns. Who was he? What was he to her? I scrolled further back, reading months of increasingly intimate messages. They talked about their days, their dreams, their desires. They shared jokes, secrets, and intimate details about their lives. It was like reading a love story, a story that excluded me. Then I saw it, a message that made my stomach churn. "I love you," Finn had written. And Willow had replied, "I love you too." Words burned into my brain, searing my soul. I felt like I had been punched in the gut, winded and disoriented. My world tilted on its axis, and everything I thought I knew about my life, about my marriage, shattered into a million pieces. I stumbled back from the phone, my legs weak. I sank into a chair, the phone still clutched in my hand. Tears streamed down my face, blurring my vision. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't feel anything but a crushing, overwhelming pain. She was cheating on me. My wife, the woman I had loved and trusted for 18 years, was having an affair. The realization hit me like a tidal wave, drowning me in a sea of grief and anger. I spent the rest of the day in a daze, wandering around the house like a ghost. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't do anything but replay the messages in my head. The pain was unbearable, a constant ache in my chest. When Willow came home that evening, I was waiting for her. I stood in the living room, my arms crossed, my face set in a mask of cold fury. "We need to talk," I said, my voice flat. She looked at me, her eyes widening slightly. "What's wrong? Don't play dumb with me, Willow. I know everything." Face paled. "Know what?" I held up her phone. "This, Finn, the messages, the lies." She didn't say anything for a moment, her eyes darting around the room, searching for an escape. Then she sighed and looked at me, her expression a mixture of guilt and defiance. "Okay, fine," she said. "Yes, I've been seeing someone." Her admission was like a knife twisting in my heart. "How could you?" I asked, my voice cracking. "How could you do this to me, to us?" "I don't know," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I wasn't happy. I felt like we were drifting apart. I needed something more, something more. After 18 years. After everything we've been through." "I'm sorry," she said, but her words sounded hollow, empty. "Sorry isn't good enough, Willow. You've destroyed everything." We argued for hours that night, a bitter, painful exchange of accusations and recriminations. She tried to justify her actions, to explain her feelings, but I couldn't hear her. All I could hear was the echo of her betrayal, the sound of our marriage crumbling around us. In the end, there was nothing left to say. The trust was gone, the love was gone, the future we had planned together was gone. It was over. I told her to leave. I couldn't bear to look at her, to be in the same room with her. She packed a bag and walked out the door, leaving me alone in the house we had built together, a shell of my former self. The next few months were the darkest of my life. I was consumed by grief, anger, and a profound sense of loss. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't focus on anything. I lost weight, neglected my work, and isolated myself from my friends and family. I went through the motions of daily life, but I felt like I was living in a dream, a nightmare from which I couldn't wake up. The pain was constant, a dull ache that never went away. I considered revenge, fantasizing about confronting Finn, about exposing Willow's infidelity to her colleagues and friends. But I knew that wouldn't make me feel any better. It wouldn't undo the damage she had done. Instead, I decided to focus on myself, on healing and rebuilding my life. I started therapy, joined a support group for betrayed spouses, and tried to reconnect with my passions. It was a slow, painful process, but gradually I began to feel like myself again. I realized that Willow's betrayal was not a reflection of me, but of her own insecurities and unhappiness. I had done nothing wrong. I had been a good husband, a loving partner. She had made a choice, and I couldn't let her choice define me. As I started to heal, a strange sense of calm settled over me. I realized that I was free. Free from the lies, the secrets, the emotional manipulation. I was no longer bound to a woman who didn't love me, who didn't respect me. I filed for divorce, and the process was surprisingly amicable. Willow didn't fight me on anything. She seemed eager to move on with her life, to start fresh with Finn. I didn't care. I just wanted it to be over. The divorce was finalized a few months later. I sold the house, packed my belongings, and moved to a small apartment downtown. It was a fresh start, a chance to reinvent myself. I threw myself into my work, taking on new projects and challenges. I started exercising, eating healthy, and spending time with friends and family. I rediscovered my love of hiking and began exploring the mountains around Seattle. One day, I was browsing online when I stumbled upon an article about Finn. He was a local businessman, a real estate developer with a reputation for being ruthless and ambitious. The article mentioned that he was married, with 2 young children. My heart skipped a beat. Willow knew he was married. She had knowingly broken up a family, just as she had broken up ours. A wave of anger washed over me, but it quickly subsided. I realized that I didn't care. It was their problem now. They could deal with the consequences of their actions. I closed the article and went for a walk. The sun was shining, the birds were singing, and the air was crisp and clean. I took a deep breath and smiled. I was free, happy, and finally at peace. About a year after the divorce, I received a message from Willow out of the blue. She asked if we could meet for coffee. I hesitated, but curiosity got the better of me. I agreed. We met at a small cafe near her office. She looked different, older, more tired. The glow was gone. "Are you?" I asked, trying to sound polite. "Not good," she said, her voice flat. "Finn left me." My heart didn't skip a beat. "I'm sorry to hear that." "Left me for someone younger, someone more exciting," she said, her eyes filling with tears. "He said I was too clingy, too demanding. I didn't say anything, I just listened. I thought he was my soulmate," she said. "I thought he was the one who could make me happy, but he was just using me." "Know how that feels," I said, my voice soft. She looked at me, her eyes filled with regret. "I made a mistake, Cormac," she said. "I threw away something good for something that wasn't real." "Yes, you did," I said. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice cracking. "I'm so sorry for everything I did to you." I looked at her, my heart filled with a mixture of pity and indifference. I knew she was suffering, but I couldn't feel sorry for her. She had made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. "I forgive you, Willow," I said. "But that doesn't change anything. We can't go back." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I know," she said. "I just wanted you to know that I regret everything." We sat in silence for a few minutes, then I stood up to leave. "Goodbye, Willow," I said. "Goodbye, Cormac," she said. I walked out of the cafe, leaving her behind. I didn't look back. I knew that I had finally closed that chapter of my life. I was free to move on, to find someone who truly loved and respected me, and I did. A few years later, I met someone wonderful, a woman named Saoirse. She was kind, intelligent, and beautiful inside and out. We fell in love, and we built a life together, a life filled with love, laughter, and mutual respect. I learned a valuable lesson from my experience with Willow. I learned that trust is precious, that love is fragile, and that betrayal can leave scars that never fully heal. But I also learned that it is possible to move on, to forgive, and to find happiness again, even after the most devastating heartbreak. And as I sit here now, years later, looking out at the Seattle rain, I can honestly say that I am grateful for everything that has happened in my life, even the painful parts. Because it has all led me to where I am today, to a place of peace, love, and contentment. I am Cormac, and this is my story of betrayal, heartbreak, and ultimately, redemption. It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope for a brighter future.